G'day. You can normally take control of the right to manage company that manages your block of flats by calling a general meeting where you vote on changing the composition of the company's board of directors. My previous video about this was 10 times too long and covered lots of different aspects of right to manage companies, and people found it too long. They didn't listen to the whole thing the whole way through, so I'm going to break it down. And this video, episode 2, is just about how you call that crucial general meeting. As it's customary to say, it would genuinely help me if you were to subscribe to this channel and like this video. This video is only about right to manage companies and common hold associations, but the same principles often apply in other companies, such as many resident management companies. I'll speak more about those in later videos. Changing the board of directors of a company is a two-step process. Step 1, you call a general meeting of the members of the company. And step 2, once the meeting actually happens, which could take a few weeks, at that meeting you pass resolutions to appoint or dismiss directors. We'll get to what a resolution is a bit later. So first step, calling the general meeting. General meeting is a formal meeting of a company. It's a formal meeting of the company members, shareholders in some cases. And that formal meeting is empowered to take binding decisions that the company has to follow. To call a general meeting, you've got two routes. Firstly, you could persuade the directors to call one, in which case this video is largely superfluous. But in the hypothesis here, the directors don't agree with you, and if they think you want a general meeting in order to sack them, well, they're probably not going to call that for you. That tactic isn't going to work. So your fallback is that you can demand a general meeting under company law. This is called requisitioning a general meeting. It takes a written petition on one or more documents signed by at least 5% of those who are entitled to vote at general meetings of the company. So, as an example, if you've got a block of 150 flats, but the members of the RTM company collectively only own 100 of those flats between them, then the threshold for how many signatures you need is 5% of the 100 members and not 5% of 150 flats. 5% of 100 is of course 5, so it's not a particularly hard threshold to meet. The requisition documents have to state what the general meeting is going to be about, and you're wasting your own time and everyone else's if you don't include in those documents the text of resolutions that can be voted on at the meeting, the things you actually want done. So what's a resolution? Resolution is a sentence that is a command that you want the company to obey. It can't be a question or a refutable statement, just commands. So you introduce that command with something like, the company resolves that, whatever. For example, the company resolves that Jane Doe and Jack Smith be appointed as directors, or the company resolves that Mallory Malfoy be dismissed as a director, or some combination of things like that. When you write to the company demanding the meeting, you have to include the exact text of all the resolutions that you want company members to have a chance to vote on. And the directors will send out a copy of that text to each member of the company when they give notice of the meeting. The exact procedures for forcing a company to hold a general meeting are available online, beginning at section 303 of the Companies Act 2006. You can just Google that and you'll be taken to the wonderful website www.legislation.gov.uk, and well, that's step 1 done. That's how you get a general meeting called. Either persuade the directors, or 5% of you write in saying we want a general meeting under section 303, and here are the resolutions we would like discussed and passed. So the second step, what happens then? The meeting will eventually occur. There are some time limits. If the directors don't call the meeting when you've put in a valid requisition, then you can, after a point, call it yourself. To be fair on all the members, including the ones who didn't requisition the meeting, there has to be a certain minimum notice period. To be fair on the people requisitioning, there has to be a maximum notice period as well. I think the whole thing can take about 7 weeks from requisition to the meeting actually occurring, but it can happen very quickly, within 14 or 15 days, so be aware the directors might be waiting for this and ready to pounce. So The meeting comes around. It'll be scheduled for a particular time and place that will be notified to all the members, and members will be given an opportunity to nominate proxies to turn up in their stead, and eventually the members or their proxies will turn up at the appointed time and place. And at some point in the meeting that then takes place, the resolutions that you've proposed will be voted on. What does it take to win these votes? Let's do a worked example. It's a simple majority rule for what's called an ordinary resolution. So you need to get more votes for than against. Let's assume this time that there's 100 flats in the block, and also assume that the owners of just 60 of those flats are members of the RTM company, and the rest don't participate in the company at all. So those 60 flats owners would have got a notice from the director saying, come to the meeting. And let's say that of those 60, 25 show up to the meeting, either in person or through a proxy, someone that they've nominated to attend and vote in their place. So each resolution we put, one after the other, to the members to vote on. And when a resolution is put to the vote in this scenario, how many votes would it take for the resolution to win? That depends on how many people vote, as it happens. We said that 25 flats are represented at the meeting in our hypothetical example here. You need a majority. Now, half of 25 is 12.5, but some people might not vote. You count the votes for and the votes against, but you ignore those who don't vote either way. So if those 25 attendees, if say only 20 of them vote on one of the resolutions you've put forward, then you'd have to have 11 flats voting in your favour to win. If it were 10 votes for and 10 votes against, then the votes tied, and under the rules of RTM companies, the chairman gets a casting vote. The chairman, I think, is always going to be a director, probably someone you're trying to sack or outvote. And so if the chairman gets an extra vote, then you're probably going to lose. So you do need at least one more vote than the other side. But people who don't vote are ignored in this setup. It's perfectly realistic that 11 flats out of 100 could win the day in this kind of fashion. Decisions are made by those who show up. It's as simple as that. RTM companies all have the same democratic voting rules and the same membership rules. Common hold associations also have guaranteed democratic constitutions. So I think everything that I've said about RTM companies so far also applies to common hold associations. Both those two sorts of company have rules that are prescribed by Parliament, and you can't really change the constitution in any way that stops it being democratic. Other companies, including particularly resident management companies that you might be a member of, can have different rules, radically different rules. They differ from company to company, and those rules might include a rule saying that some or all members can't vote, or most of the members can't vote. It's only the developer's mates who get to vote or something. So you'll have to check on Companies House and possibly elsewhere to find out how the thing would work. It may work just like an RTM company, but it might not. And episode 5, which I'll make in the future, is going to be about how you obtain a copy of the company's constitution, or Articles of Association, as it's formally known. So good luck, thanks in advance, and happy requisitioning. If this stuff's useful, please support the channel, like, subscribe, and share it with the people you know. Thanks very much.